Welcome to the International Business Game Show. Today, our topic will be the European Union. I will ask both our contestants various questions about the European Union. If they know the answer, they can raise their hand. They then must answer the question. The contestant with the most correct answers at the end of our show will be the winner. Our first contestant will be Ryan Fleming. Ryan lives in Calgary, Alberta, and works as an economist. Please join me in welcoming Ryan to the show. Our second contestant is Callum Smith. Callum lives in Halifax, Nova Scotia. He works as a financial advisor. Give it up for Callum. Let's start off with some basic questions in history about the European Union. How many countries are in the European Union? 27. That is incorrect, Ryan. 28. Yes, that is correct. Moving on now to our second question. What is the purpose of the European Union? The European Union was started in 1993. Its purpose was to increase political, economic, and social activity between the Western European countries. After World War II, many Europeans were tired of fighting each other. The continent of Europe was in rough condition. World War II brought intense destruction and negative political and social impacts to many countries in Europe. Through the next 50 years, Western Europeans came together to build agreements between many nations and eventually formed the European Union in 1993. The European Union has its own currency, flag, and anthem, as well as its own foreign, financial, and security policies. Countries in the European Union can trade between countries without borders and can pass freely into other countries who are members of the European Union. That is correct, Callum. On to our next question. What was the major issue facing the Eurozone? Name the countries that helped cause the European crisis and explain how the European Union's common currency helped create the situation it faced and made it difficult to resolve the issues. Wow, that is a tough question. To begin, the Eurozone was in good economic times following the introduction of the euro in 1999. Many European countries were financially stable at this time and were experiencing large consumption within their respective economies. Many European countries, such as Greece, were seeing large sales in building and real estate. A bubble was beginning to form in many European countries. This is where the problem hits. Since the EU has a common currency, they cannot adjust interest rates to specified countries' needs. Germany is a dominant, powerful economy in Europe. The European Central Bank, ECB, makes its priority to set interest rates at the basis of Germany's needs. So the interest rates in Greece, for example, might need to be set at a different rate than in Germany, depending on the health of each economy. The beginning of the financial crisis in 2008 sparked economic collapse in the United States and in some European countries. This was largely due in part to many European countries having large amounts of debt. In 2009, Greece announced that their debt had reached 300 billion euros, which was 113% of its GDP, much more than the target percentage of GDP, which should be 60%. The introduction of the euro brought on large debt for many countries. Before the common currency, investors looked to governments to invest their money. An investor will look at the financial stability of a country. So for Germany, an investor will look at them and go, they have a good track record, a strong economy, and they are financially responsible. I'm going to invest my money with them at an interest rate of 2%. However, an investor would look at Greece, see that they have had problems with their economy in the past, and fail to generate tax revenue from their citizens, and think, invest with Greece, and they invest with Greece at an interest rate of, say, 15%. However, with the new common currency, investors looked at Greece and thought, if Greece can't pay me back for my investment, Germany will because they have the same currency. Many European countries took advantage of this and borrowed large sums of money. They spent on healthcare, jobs, and infrastructure. In Ireland and Spain, this led to a massive bubble. In Ireland and Spain, this led to a housing bubble. People were buying houses that they couldn't afford, simply because the interest rate was low. When they couldn't pay back their loans, many houses went up on the market, and the price of houses decreased substantially. People lost money on their investments. This meant that banks could no longer lend money because they had no money. A crisis had begun in Europe. Jobs were lost, investments were down, pensions and healthcare had no longer existed. The countries heavily involved in the crisis are known as the PIGS: Portugal, Ireland, Greece, and Spain, and some will say Italy as well. The PIGS are known to drag down the Eurozone economy. The pigs traditionally have had high unemployment rates, low GDP rates, and high debt levels. In 2017, the Eurozone economy started to do well. However, it was held back by the pigs. That is correct. Excellent answer, Ryan. Moving on to our next question. What was and is being done to solve the Eurozone crisis? How do you think it is working? The answer to solving the Eurozone's debt crisis is to get the pigs' economies back on track. The large debt that the pigs have brings down the other economies in the Eurozone. The pigs were hit with multiple austerity measure packages. Countries like Greece had tough austerity measures, such as cutting government employee wages and other government expenses. Many of the affected countries sold off government-owned businesses, raised the retirement age, and made the process of starting a business easier. The European Central Bank started a fund of 200 billion euros to keep failing governments and businesses from defaulting. The European Central Bank also started buying up Greek investment. This helped get Greece back on track because people were now encouraged to take out Greek loans and sell them to the European Central Bank and make money. These loans helped Greeks start new businesses. The European Central Bank started checking government expenditures. If they found government's expenses were too high, they could reduce the spending of a government. Lastly, the Eurogroup was created. Finance ministers from each country in the Eurozone come together during times of emergency to try and prevent another Eurozone crisis again. Overall, these measures seem to work. The Eurozone economy has performed well over the last few years. Greece, however, is still having economic issues. Greece's debt is so high, many experts see Greece having economic problems for years ahead. Some people have suggested that Greece should leave the Eurozone and adopt their own currency. This would allow them to have their own monetary policy. Greece might devalue their currency in an attempt to increase export and tourism. Some countries, such as Germany, bailed out countries with high amounts of debt. That is correct. Next question. Highlight the opinions on how the fallout from Brexit will potentially impact Britain, if at all, as well as how it will potentially impact the Union on a whole, if at all. Britain leaving the European Union will provide advantages and disadvantages for the UK. One of the main advantages for the UK is that it can now stop the free flow of immigration into the UK from the EU. The UK will now also not have to follow EU tax guidelines, as well as no longer having to pay EU membership fees. As for disadvantages, the UK will see an intense slowdown in growth. The UK Treasury's chief said that in 2018, growth would slow to 2.4%, and in 2019 to 1.9%. Britain could also lose their no-tariff trade clause with other EU members. This could be problematic for UK businesses. The UK looks likely to ultimately suffer due to their departure from the EU. The UK will have to move to the World Trade Organization's rules, which look likely to hurt the UK. Businesses will have trouble selling their products to other foreign countries. The leave of the UK will provide much uncertainty for the EU. Britain's leave will create a void in the EU economy. The EU budget gap that Britain had left will have to be picked up by another country. Trade to Britain from other EU countries will be reduced. This is likely to hurt many EU countries and their economies. The EU's main export to Britain, which is tourism, likely will not change at all. As for foreign investment, the EU is likely to see a boost here. Britain was the largest spot for foreign investment in the EU. Many investors will now likely look to other EU countries to invest their money. Many Eastern European workers migrate to Britain for jobs. The departure of Britain from the EU will move many of these workers to other European countries, which could have both positive and negative effects. That is correct. For our last question, what is your opinion on the current direction and health of the Eurozone economy? I believe that currently the Eurozone is performing very well. In the last quarter of 2017, the Eurozone's growth was the highest it has been in a decade. The Eurozone's GDP per capita was up to 32,000 in 2016, 2,000 euros more than it was in 2014. Employment rates have performed well. In 2014, the unemployment rate was 11.6%, 10.9% in 2015, and 10% in 2016. The unemployment rates have been trending in the right direction over the last few years. In 2016, the inflation rate was 1.1%. The European Central Bank targets inflation to be between 1 to 2% each year. The Eurozone saw an increase in investment as well as increase in manufacturing jobs. Overall, in 2017, the Eurozone outpaced the United States economy and the UK economy. The growth they saw in 2017 was very good, and all economic indicators forecast stable economic growth for coming years. Well done, Callum. It is my pleasure to crown Callum champion of the International Business Game Show for tonight. Thank you to our viewers for watching. Have a great night.